Hello, my name is Landon Trin, and I am here to talk about my social world. So, to start off, we'll have an introduction, and the essential point of this presentation is to just talk about the numerous places that I have social interactions and how these social interactions differ from place to place. So, firstly, we're going to talk about my family. I come from a big family. I have 5 siblings. I live with my parents and my grandparents. So, there's 10 of us in the house total, and we're very interactive with one another. We see each other every single day. Granted, my older brothers have moved out, and this image right here is of me, 3 of my siblings, and my mom, and we are very close. We speak to each other very often. We eat meals together, just do a lot of things together, like hobbies and other activities. And an interesting thing is that we rarely ever express love with words. For example, we don't really say I love you in our household, and that is very common in households of Asian descent, such as Chinese or Southeast Asians. And instead of saying I love you or expressing it through words, we try to do it with our actions by doing services for one another, or by doing favors or just helping each other out. Another aspect of my social world is relationships. And so I am currently in a 5-year relationship, and there's a lot of one-on-one interaction with us. We see each other very often, and we interact socially by obviously expressing affection for one another, by being very helpful to one another, and just doing a lot of things together. And so another aspect of my social world is friends. And so I have friends from back in high school. There's not much contact with them or time spent in person anymore, as we are in college and very busy with our schoolwork and other activities that we participate in. And if we ever do communicate, it is usually online, never in person, or not even on the phone, but like a quick text or something of that nature. And another aspect of my social world is school. So obviously when you go to school, you interact with a lot of people and you see a lot of people every day. Well, I don't know about every day, but just every time that you do go to school, you'll encounter people. And so what this entails for me is working in several group projects. And from my experience, I have made good friends with all of my lab partners and my group partners. And so the picture I have up here is just an example of a group project I did. So this was just taken under a microscope for a biology lab. I worked with a lab partner and we did this very successfully. And so that's just an example of a social interaction that we had during school. The next social aspect that I'll be discussing is my occupation. So it is worth noting I own a tropical fish store with my 5 siblings, and we speak to various customers from different backgrounds, and we work together to achieve common goals, and we express concerns and modes of improvement very often with one another. So this occupation, we started it 5 years ago back in 2020, and we've worked very closely with each other, and we also, like I mentioned, interact with a ton of customers, and sometimes interactions differ with each other. For example, they can be very friendly or they can be sometimes confrontational or negative, and sometimes I have to be a peacekeeper, which is a discussion topic that was talked about very recently. And so this is a direct example of that. And so, like I mentioned, there are a lot of times where a customer will come in very upset and I will have to keep the peace rather than escalate the situation further. And so to kind of just reiterate, working and owning a tropical fish store, you do have a lot of social interactions on a daily basis. And so another aspect of social worlds is hobbies. And so I have a couple hobbies that I partake in. As I mentioned last slide, which is the last bullet point here, I'm interested in aquarium keeping. And so that is a lot of online social interaction in terms of just the hobby rather than an occupation. However, I also play sports such as tennis and basketball, and what this entails is playing with a lot of different people. Sometimes you don't know people, sometimes it's with friends, but you play with strangers a lot of the time, and it can be very competitive and sometimes not the friendliest social environments. However, everyone's there pretty much for the same purpose, and at the end of the day, this is something I enjoy, and there's a lot of social interaction with that. And what I actually have pictured is fishing, and this is kind of opposite of both tennis and basketball. So there's not much interaction with others because I like to do this by myself. And so obviously, if you're just by yourself, there's not much social interaction. So that is more of a lack thereof. And so just, yeah, image there is just me holding up a fish I caught in one of my fishing trips. And so to close out this presentation, there are many places that I interact with people in many different ways. For example, I'm in a relationship. I'm very vocal with others at school and work. I'm very tight knit with my family, and I participate in various hobbies that require interaction with others besides fishing. And this is where I got my source about the Asian households displaying affection. And thank you for your time.